Gashamaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to episode 379 of the GeoGearHeads. I'm Daryl W4, back again this week with Chris of the Northwest.
Oh, Daryl, it's good to have you back. I hope you had a great trip. And today, Daryl, it's one of my favorite shows. It's a Randomize episode.
Yeah, and Randomize 81. I had to go and double check just to make sure I didn't screw it up. It is 81.
LXXXI.
And I imagine I'm probably messed that up again because it's been one heck of a time.
You know, Roman numerals are difficult once you get past, a certain extent. And
we do it so that we get the exercise so that we can solve those puzzles. That's why we do it.
Mental fortitude.
Exactly.
And then once we get past 100, it gets a lot easier.
For a little while.
Yeah.
And when we get to like our thousands, we're really up a creek.
Yeah. Let's keep going until then, just to see what we're going to do.
Sure. Yeah, we've got lots of randomized shows that we're going to have to do. Yeah, a lot more than usual seems because we've been getting some excellent feedback, and there's some also pretty good news out there. But before we get into that, you might have noticed that the show from last week didn't hit the feed. That was in part that I didn't have time to track it down. And in part, we had technical difficulties with the syncing service from a popular company that shall remain nameless.
Has something to do with a storage container, but we won't go there.
Exactly. Because
sudden gusty gravity on a storage container. But I don't know which one we're talking about. But last week's show, Daryl, since you don't know, Len Monkey and I talked about geocaching with kids, with children of all ages.
I did actually see the tweet go out that he was going to fill in for me. And it's a good thing that he did because, I have no kids.
Well, that was kind of part of the thought.
I have nieces and nephews, but I have no goats at all.
No goats. No
goats.
Any sheep? Those are lambs, not kids.
Correct.
Yeah.
And no calves.
Oh, chicks. Yeah,
well, I got my wife. No. And we are so bad. And I know we're bad for that joke, which we should be bad for the joke, but that we both came up with a joke at the same time.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, it was a fun show. Show before that, we got to talk with Merlin 1392.
We did.
Do you remember? Can you remember back that far?
I barely. It's really tough, and it seems like that was like months ago, literally.
Well, because you have a mouth brain.
My brain is melted, and if it weren't for having taken a week off for the vacation, for the honeymoon, we probably would have been totally fried. Like completely brain melt, steam coming out of ears and shutting down.
Well, next week I'm going to take a trip, but I should be able to be on the show.
Ooh.
Going down to California to do a college visit with my son.
Oh.
He's interested in a college down there, and it's, come visit us day. I'm sure there's more an official name for that, but, come for the day, spend the night. Hopefully someone will pick you up in the morning, leave you on the road for dead.
Yeah, I was going to say probably the students typically are hoping that their parents forget about them and just leave them at college.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If we forget about them, then there's no money going his way. So.
Well, this is true.
Yeah.
So they just hope that they forget that you haven't dropped them off at school and continue to pay the bills.
Right.
All right. Well, let's get to this email that came in from Merlin 1392.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and read it? You
just take a nap, catch up.
Okay.
I'll be okay. Just don't snore.
Yeah, I gotta watch.
Says, thanks Thanks for the invite to participate. It was fun as always. In the interest of correctness, I brought the builder's guide with me to work to check a couple of answers. Here's what the guide says for physical locations. And in case you're wondering, we're talking about the Adventure Lab caches, and there's an official builder's guide for those. So you can do virtual locations, you can do physical locations. Here's what it says about physical. Check location. If your adventure meets the following 3 criteria, then you must have your location or locations cleared by a community volunteer reviewer. 1, will your adventure be public, listed in the directory for anyone else to find? Let's take a break there, Daryl. I didn't know you could have private adventures.
No, I didn't either, but I did hear something about that.
So that was interesting.
Yeah, that's confirmation that they are going to have the private ones. And I wonder if, yeah, because I haven't heard much about it aside from they're going to have some ones that are not listed.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if that's going to be like for training.
Well, it might be for corporate events.
Yes.
Things like that where they could use it in a commercial endeavor.
Sure.
Okay. We'll touch back on that. Let's go to point number 2 from the builder's guide. Will people be able to participate in your adventure for more than 3 weeks? Number 3, are you putting anything physical at the location, such as a container, gadget cache, or new sign? The steps to check locations include create a multi-cache on geocaching.com. Interesting. Title the cache, do not publish, Adventure Lab location check. Add visible physical waypoints for any physical placements. Provide descriptions of what you want to have placed and other relevant information. Submit for review. So there really isn't a distance rule here, but a multi-cache does have the 528-foot rule for physical elements. That's where I inferred that it could be added to the Adventure Lab. The other piece in the location find code, the find code has a maximum character count of 50, so it can be quite long. Hope this helps. See you all again soon.
Yeah, so that is really interesting for a variety of reasons, but it seems like the location thing is going to be exempt for most of the mega events because they're only a week of availability. So
right.
Unless you go over 3 weeks,
exactly,
you have to worry about the proximity. So good news for most of the builders, but certainly could cause problems for someone who's trying to do something for a longer term event, like a show or something like that. You know, the GPS maze, for instance, used to have like 2 or 3 month long engagements and have lab caches available the whole time.
Right. Bounce hit me in the chat earlier and asked if I had done the WSGA, the Washington State Geocaching Association lab caches today. So apparently those went live.
Oh, excellent.
So I've got to go get those.
Okay. So I'll go read this. You can go get those and be back by the time we're done, right? Okay. So one of the things that's come up in the last few weeks is the end of Geo Live. So it's not truly the end, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this up, because it does sound kind of bad. Geo Live, the app that we know and a lot of people have been geeking out on lately, is going to stop working on May 1st. The development of Geo Live stopped actually a while ago, and what's going to happen is this version of the app not only has gone unsupported, but he's going to pull it and it's not going to be available. And the reasons are that the expenses are higher than the revenue, which makes sense because it's mostly a free model, if I remember. Google has raised their pricing for the services, including increasing the development and server costs, which means Geo costs about 5 times more than what it's making. So there's no way to sustain it since it's become like the donation model. Then the new Groundspeak API has changed to significantly enough that it requires extensive reworking. You know, fundamental is what he says in his notes. Rewrite of Geo. And when it comes back, and this is the important part, it will not be a free version of the app. So there's not going to be the free Geo Live app that we're used to. So Google doesn't allow for you to take a free app and turn it to a paid app, which means he has to relist it when he comes out with a new version. So there is a new improved version of Geo in the works, using the new API and all of that kind of stuff. But we don't know as of this airing when it's going to come out. And I have not had a chance to talk to Ron to find out when and if he might be able to come on the show and give us a little bit more information about it. But that was in the works months ago, but had to be postponed because, well, he was busy at work with this. So Geo Live is going to be coming back. It's not going to be called Geo Live. It's going to be rebranded with a new name and logo so that it's not going to confuse anyone with the old version. And as soon as the new app is released, users will be notified of the version and the link to download it. So it's initially going to be available on the Google Play for English-speaking countries only. And part of that has been he's had complaints with the language translations. So once the translations are improved, he's going to make it visible in those other countries. And the prices for the new app have not been finalized, but should be less than $4 for the initial purchase and $1 for a subscription that occurs every 6 months.
Which seems very reasonable in pricing.
Yeah, and I hate to say it because I do like the buy it one time for a low price and let it go forever. But that model is not really sustainable, especially because it's always included the updates. I shouldn't say always. Since the app stores, it's included all the updates.
Right.
So it's something that they can't really sustain as the developers. You know, it's not so bad for some of the apps where there's no server cost to them. But if you have any kind of server costs, that doesn't work. And for most of these apps, they're spending enough time and money updating them that, you know, they need to get something back. So
yeah,
subscription has become very popular because it's a way to handle that nicely.
Exactly. And, you know, we've seen where Google charges for maps and then suddenly they back off and say, no, we've changed our mind. We're not going to charge for them. Well, you know, if you've got a app that uses Google Maps, you know, you've got to either take it away or absorb that cost. That's just not fair. And, you know, there's other things that come up, you know, you said servers or, you know, lots of different things that could come up that, you know, hey, I paid for this once. Well, that's not necessarily the way it's going to work anymore. So
sure. Well, and a lot of times apps like Geo Live do require their own servers to keep things running smoothly, beyond just connecting to something like the geocaching.com servers. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening with many of these apps on the back end that you might not realize is even happening. And that costs the developers money. So good news is there is a new version of Geo coming, but it's not going to be called Geo Live, and it will cost you money to upgrade. And as of a few days ago when I checked, there was no update on when that new app was coming.
Geo Live has been placed in a coma.
I don't think that's true, but you have until May 1st at least before the old app
pulls the plug.
Right.
I'm going with the live part of the name here. Playing with it. They're all
got it. Okay.
You're too tired to figure it out. I'll keep.
I am. Let's move on.
Oh, hey, you have an article in here about benefits coming from the GPS 3 constellation. Now, currently, there's one satellite for GPS 3. Am I right?
Well, there's one satellite, if I remember correctly, that's actually broadcast, but there's 2 GPS 3 satellites that have been launched.
Okay. And then, yeah, the second one, when last we heard, wasn't in position yet.
Correct.
So GPS, we're currently using GPS 2 version F.
We're using a mix still, I think. of version 2 satellites.
That's right. We're using GPS version 2, various versions. The latest one was
Correct. Yeah,
Got
we
it.
have, I want to say 15 2F satellites.
So, anyway, the article goes on to say, this comes from GPS World. A new ground control system for GPS-3 satellites will offer triple the accuracy and 8 times the anti-jamming capabilities of the satellites currently comprising the U.S. Air Force GPS constellation. Users of military and civilian uses will reap ample benefits. Can you believe that? 8 times, or I'm sorry, triple the accuracy? I want to say 8 times.
I can totally believe that. Yeah, look how old the technology is that we're using for the GPS signal, and part of the problem has been the low density of the information in that signal.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, you know what? I can tell you about the generations if you're interested.
Sure.
Because the GPS constellations have grown through 6 major iterations since 1978. I'm just pulling this off the top of my head, Daryl. Suddenly it came back.
Good.
Yeah. The 6th, that's GPS 2F, rose during the years of 2010 to 2016. There are 12 of those satellites that are designed to last at least 12 years. That's 144 operating years.
Yes, but unfortunately, they can't be used in that fashion.
Oh.
They have to work simultaneously, not sequentially.
Some of their notable features include the ability to receive software uploads, better jamming resistance, and increased accuracy. GPS 3, that's the 7th generation, will launch 9 more satellites to join SV-01, that's Space Vehicle 01, in space. SV-02 is scheduled to launch in July of this year. SV-03, late 2019, 04 in 2020. The final payload should rise in 2023. From that point on, the follow-on era of GPS 3F takes over. Interesting.
Yep.
Go right to F.
Yeah, and I it's not an ABCD kind of thing. It's
no, I kind of thought it was.
Yeah. No, I seem to remember that it was not. Each version had its own, but like there was also a Block 2A series. So there were some of those, but at that point they called them Block instead of just GPS 2. It was Block 2, Block 2A. So I think it meant, I think it really referred more to the order, essentially, because they were the blocks that were ordered and launched rather than the technology behind it. So I'd be curious to find out if anyone actually knows. Well, that just seems like it's a good and easy answer.
GPS 2R between 79 and 2004, GPS 2R-M, 8 satellites between 2005 2009. GPS 2F is 12 satellites.
But is that the orders, the actual like purchase orders that were written for those?
Well, I can tell you the number of satellites in each.
Sure, but yeah, it's because one of the things with the 3, if I remember, was it was going to be the 9, and then they decided to do a second order, which I'm thinking is the 3.
10 satellites under contract.
Under contract, okay.
Designed for 15 years lifespan.
So yeah, then they were going to come out with the next round that's at 3F. So I think what they're doing is with every purchase order, they're making at least minor tweaks, which is how they come up with the 3 versus 3F. But,
and the 3F is 22 satellites under contract.
That's the big one that they've been talking about coming up that people were bidding on, and there's not a lot of companies that want to bid on those.
It has a laser reflector array. They're using freaking lasers.
As expensive as these things are to build, though, it sounds like it's difficult to actually make money doing it.
So GSM times 2 wants to know, will the current handhelds reap those benefits?
No. So they will reap some of the benefits, but you have to have the L5 signal receiver, which is the different radio.
Now, interestingly enough, on the GPS 2F, it says L5 safety of life signal added. Is that the GPS beacons, the emergency beacons?
I don't think so, but it might be. I thought that was the
I've never
expansion
I've
that
never
they
seen those
allowed
words
for.
before.
No, I don't think I have either.
GPS2S has L5. So now wouldn't
But I don't think the L5 goes active until they get the rest of the GPS3 satellites up because they needed a critical mass of the L5s. I think that's what I had remembered. Well, actually, let's go into the next article that we have, which also came from GPS World, which is titled "The First Light Broadcast of L1C by the GPS3." So this came out on March 19th and says less than 3 weeks after its launch, the first GPS-3 satellite, Space Vehicle 74, Space Vehicle 74, started transmitting navigation signals. SVN 74 uses the pseudo-random noise code number G03, previously used by the almost 25-year-old Block 2 satellite SVN 36. So it sounds like what's happened here, and this is just my speculation reading the article, is in the almanac essentially, they've posted this as being the replacement for 36. Does that sound like it makes sense to you, Chris?
Yep, exactly. Okay. Compared to L1, the CA or the PRN codes, that pseudo random noise, I'm sorry, the L1C codes are 10 times longer than the PRN codes. So that gives you a lot more data to work with in a signal.
Right. So the PRN codes are like the older traditional version, and the L1 codes are the denser version that we've actually not started using yet, because this is the first satellite to transmit the L1 on a civilian signal.
Right.
Which does require, oh, you know what? So maybe I have
L1.
I make a bet I have L1 and L5 mixed up.
Well, the L1 and the L2, they both have a L1 and an L1C and an L2 and an L2C. The C meaning civilian.
Okay, there we go. So that helps.
Our military.
As we try to figure out what all this stuff means live on the air. Yeah,
right.
This is what happens when we get too busy. We don't have a chance to read and figure this stuff out before the airtime. So
okay, so here's a paragraph on interoperability.
Oh, okay.
Operability. I can't say that word. Here's how they work together. That they work together. We're building together. The new sorry. No, that's not how I'm supposed to do it, Daryl. The new civil L1 signals of GPS, Galileo, and Baidu, I think I never remember that. Baidu show a high level of commonality that are specifically designed for full interoperability. That means that receivers can easily track signals of all three constellations and use measurements to compute a combined multi-GNSS position solution. So there you go. The new receivers can use all of these and work with them at the same time.
Well, and that's going to be a huge help, because it is going to correct for errors, give you more satellites to look for. So just having that is going to be a huge benefit.
Yeah. So all three systems there of GPS, Galileo, and Baidu. Baidu. Baidu.
But basically, this article is really cool to look at because they do have some diagrams and some illustrations, I guess we'll call it, like waveforms. And
yeah, I would assume, Daryl, any GPS receiver that can do a firmware update will receive these benefits.
Well, no, because the L1 signal is on a different radio. So that's why I was saying I think I mixed up which L5 and L1 were. But okay. L1 is on a different frequency. So for that, you do need to have an upgraded radio. Now, that's not to say that some of these might not have the radio built in, but if they did, they should have been touting that, and I don't think anyone has, aside from cell phones. And I do remember some of the cell phones said that they do support L1. I couldn't tell you which ones,
Okay.
but I remember seeing that. And we were talking about that second GPS 3 satellite, and it did arrive in Florida for that July launch just back on the 20th of March.
Well, I thought
a July launch.
Only old satellites were forced to go to Florida.
Nope, all the satellites go to Florida.
Okay.
They all go to Florida.
It's just like, older Americans are forced to go to Florida. It's, it's a government law that you have to go there for your final years and, drive the biggest cars available.
Yeah, no.
Okay, never mind.
But so the vehicle, the space vehicle 2, GPS space vehicle 2, which these seem to change names after they're actually launched. So they have different names during launch and after launch.
Well, it's still going to be SV02, but then it goes aboard another vehicle.
Well, no, because remember, it was SVN 74.
Right.
Was what used to be GPS 3 Space Vehicle 1. So I think once it's launched and in position, they changed the name, which makes a lot of sense because now it transfers from the guys who do the launch to the guys who actually maintain the system. So
yeah, I get you.
It's a changing its call sign essentially based on what mission it's on. So right now it's GPS 3 Space Vehicle 1 or 2 for this guy, but this guy is probably going to be SVN 75 once it's actually in position and working.
Yeah.
That's my guess. Again, if someone has the info on that, let us know because we're curious.
Interesting. Do you know the name of this particular satellite? It's been dubbed Magellan in honor of Ferdinand Magellan, the Portuguese explorer who led the first expedition to circumnavigate the Earth.
Yeah.
So
not for the company that used to make handhelds and doesn't anymore.
Oh, I was thinking Ferdinand the Bull.
No.
Oh.
Because he has no Magellan.
Oh. The delivery of SV2 starts the clock for final testing and the checkout of the spacecraft prior to launch. So it's already there, and that means they're on the clock to get this thing up in the air.
Yeah, but it's going to take them a while because it's July before it launches.
Yeah, well, I didn't say it was a fast clock. It's a clock, though.
No, but you'd think just if you're just thinking about this in your head, you're going to say, okay, it's been delivered. They have to load it into the satellite and blast it into space. No, it has to be tested before it can be loaded onto the satellite
and blasted.
Right. So it takes months of testing to certify that the thing is good, which makes total sense. These are essentially one-off kind of productions. They have to make sure that this thing made it through the production okay and nothing got damaged in shipment. Because they throw these things on those big, what is it, the C-19 airplanes?
Yeah. Or C-41s, yeah.
Yeah, so they throw them on those giant planes and, essentially big shipping containers.
Mm-hmm.
Send them down to,
but yes.
Yeah. Send it down to the Cape. Put it onto, they have to put it onto the rocket that's going to shake the heck out of it and pray the thing actually opens up and they can maneuver it into position.
But other than that, it's pretty easy.
Yeah. It's not like it takes any real time or effort. They're just sitting around on their cushy government jobs, collecting the paychecks, right?
Yep. Well, and FedEx has delivered a few of these, so how hard can it be?
Far too hard. But actually, aren't these launching by like SpaceX and Blue? I want to call it Blue Origin, but that doesn't sound right. Yeah. So I think they're actually launching these now.
SpaceX is, yes.
Okay. I thought it was gone. It had gone private for it, even though it's
who builds parts for the SpaceX.
Oh yeah, I remember you talking about that.
I'm gonna have to go visit his facility.
Okay, bring back some samples and make your own vehicle.
Ooh, yeah, that's not going to work the way you think it's going to. GSM times 2 just says buy them at Amazon and ask for next day delivery. Here, let me give you well, how do you do it for coordinates? What kind of coordinates do they use for? Is it just vectors in space? How do they know where? How do they?
That's a good question. I seem to remember something about position, latitude, longitude with altitude, but I don't think that's for like the space vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but I know that there is a system to track the objects in space. I just don't know how they're doing that.
Well, we know they're tracking them.
Yeah, of course they have to. All right, one last story, which is a company named Shampoo. Well, sorry, the company isn't named Shampoo, but the guy who made his money from Shampoo is using Glasses 3D to push budget phones. And I thought this was kind of cool with a lot of the discussion we've been having on and off about augmented reality, because there's this company, Rokit, that's doing the IO 3D and IO Pro 3D with the stereo screens. So these are like cheap phones. We're talking cheap to the point of one of the phones is $300.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually no pro model.
What's that? It comes with stereoscopic glasses.
Yeah. So it's not as cool as what is the red hydrogen one that doesn't need the glasses.
Right.
But wait a minute. No, according to this, Rokit's newly launched IO 3D and IO Pro 3D both offer glasses free.
Oh, really?
3D experiences. So yeah, you don't need the glasses for this one.
Okay, but
so, yeah, that would have been a little weird. Actually,
compare the red hydrogen one is $1,500.
Yeah,
but that's easily the price of a high-end iPhone. So what do you care?
Well, and the difference though is this is nowhere near the quality of the screen,
right?
But still, for what they're offering,
you can get the low end for $200.
Yeah, and the low end one is only 1440 by 720.
Yep.
With a quad core 2 gig processor with 16 gigs of RAM, so it's not much, but $100 more, you get this Pro model.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2160 by 1080. An 8-core processor with 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs. That's something that you could actually use for some of the location-based games.
Right.
And imagine how much more fun something like what was the name of that Ghostbusters one is that I never played, that I keep saying I should. It's like Ghostbusters Go.
What are you going to call it?
No, that's not it.
I don't know.
But something like that with a true 3D experience does sound a lot more interesting. But there's also been a burst lately of these 180-degree 3D cameras. That's pretty cool. So if you get the 100, the whole point is with 2 cameras pointing forward, you can do stereoscopic photography in 180 degrees and get some of the panning and everything that you can do with a 360, but it only goes halfway. And for most things, that's going to be better than a 360 would be.
Mm-hmm.
Because now it's stereo and you still direct the viewer to whatever you're looking at. They still have the option to move around, but they can't spin around and see the empty seats in the audience or whatever.
You don't want to see that. There's nothing to see here. Move along.
I might want to see that. Oh. I don't know. But yeah, so these aren't very powerful. They are kind of still lacking, but for the price with the 3D screens. If it's actually supported well, I think this could be an interesting thing to play with for the augmented reality games.
It's very possible, Daryl. It's very possible. I shouldn't be clicking through other articles while we're reading on the page, but did you know Tesla has added 2048 and Atari Super Breakout to its dashboards?
I remember the Super Breakout. I don't remember the 2048, but I'm not terribly surprised.
Why? Why would they intentionally put a game right there to distract you?
Well, it won't let you play while you're driving.
There are other Atari classics, Missile Command, Asteroids, Lunar Lander, and Centipede, which have been added in August. So there you go.
And I remember the videos of Centipede and people trying to play that in the car, and not while driving, because I don't think it lets you do it while driving.
What if passenger wants to?
Well, and that's the thing is, like, the passenger and the driver were like competing for the control or something like that, as I recall, in one of the videos. It was just like, really? You're going to videotape this and post it?
And you turn on autopilot and you play a game while going down the highway at 60 miles an hour. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. Well, and they've been improving that autopilot. I just read something a couple of weeks ago that they've enabled autopilot on more of the vehicles in the latest version and upgraded the capabilities.
It runs over a lot less people now than it used to.
Well, it's not the running over the other people that has been as much the problem as it is the running into barriers and other vehicles that becomes a problem.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah. Especially when it creates fiery crashes.
I mean, you look at that and go, okay, well, it can see the road, but does it understand road construction? And that's all.
It doesn't understand big, like,
construction.
Yeah. It doesn't understand the big single color semi so much. So they've had some issues.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Daryl, I think we should wrap Randomize 81. That's LXXXI.
I think we should, because among other things, I'm like having a hard time concentrating in my words.
Yes, Daryl is tired. You know what, Daryl? Let me close the show.
Okay, thank you very much.
Folks, check the Cashomaniacs website at cashomaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes from this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cashomaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cashomaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cashomaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl W4, who's currently sleeping. The show's copyright 2019 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cashomaniacs.